She came to the mountains to study wolves. But the wolf that found her wasn't interested in being studied. He wanted something far more primal, her heart. Luna had been living in the mountain cabin for exactly 2 weeks when she first noticed something was wrong. The cabin wasn't fancy, just a small wooden structure her university had arranged for her research project on wolf populations. She was supposed to spend 6 months here, studying migration patterns and pack behavior. The isolation didn't bother her. Actually, she preferred it. No roommates, no office politics, just her in the wilderness. But on that Tuesday night, everything changed. She was sitting at her small kitchen table, typing up notes from the day's observations when she heard it, a low sound almost like breathing, coming from just outside her window. Luna froze, fingers hovering over her laptop keyboard. The cabin was miles away from the nearest town, and she hadn't seen another person since the supply truck dropped off groceries 3 days ago. The breathing continued. Slow, deliberate, heavy. Luna's heart hammered in her chest as she slowly turned her head toward the window. The curtains were drawn, but she could see a shadow through the thin fabric. Something big. Something that definitely wasn't human. She held her breath, not daring to move. Minutes passed like hours. Finally, the shadow moved away, and she heard the sound of heavy footsteps retreating into the forest. Only then did Luna remember to breathe. The next morning, she found the prints. They were massive, easily twice the size of any wolf print she'd ever seen in her textbooks. The claws had dug deep into the soft earth near her porch, and there were scratches on the old oak tree about 10 feet from her door. Fresh scratches, the wood still pale and exposed. Luna pulled out her phone and took pictures, her hands shaking slightly. This wasn't normal. Wolves didn't behave this way. They avoided human settlements, and they certainly didn't stand outside cabin windows like they were watching. That night, she made sure every window was locked. She pulled all the curtains tight and kept the lights on. She even dragged a chair in front of the door, as if that would somehow help if something really wanted to get in. Luna tried to work, tried to focus on her research, but every small sound made her jump. Around midnight, it came back. This time, she heard it clearly. The footsteps were too heavy for a regular wolf, and they circled the cabin slowly, methodically. Luna sat frozen on her couch, clutching her phone, debating whether to call for help. But what would she say? That she heard something outside? In the wilderness? They'd think she was paranoid. Then she heard something that made her blood run cold. A sniffing sound right at her door. Whatever was out there was trying to catch her scent. Luna's scientific mind tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was a bear. Bears could be curious, could investigate human structures. But bears didn't move like this. They didn't have the patience to circle and wait and watch. She crept to the window, her curiosity fighting with her fear. Very slowly, she pulled back just a corner of the curtain and peeked outside. 2 glowing eyes stared back at her. Luna gasped and dropped the curtain, stumbling backward. Her heart felt like it might explode. Those weren't bear eyes. They weren't wolf eyes either. They were too intelligent, too focused, too aware. She waited, pressed against the wall, expecting something to happen. But nothing did. After what felt like an eternity, she heard the footsteps retreat once more. The third night, Luna decided to be smart about it. She set up her trail camera, the one she used for her wolf research, pointing it at the area where the creature usually appeared. She also kept her flashlight and bear spray close by, though she suspected neither would be much use. The creature came back right on schedule. This time, Luna noticed a pattern. It arrived around 11:30, circled the cabin exactly 3 times, spent about 20 minutes near the front porch, and then left just before 1 in the morning. On the 4th night, Luna stayed up and watched through a gap in the curtains. She needed to see it clearly, needed to know what she was dealing with. When it emerged from the tree line, she couldn't believe what she was seeing. It was wolf-like, yes, but far too large. It stood almost as tall as a grown man when on all fours, with thick dark fur that seemed to shimmer in the moonlight. Its movements were graceful, almost elegant, completely unlike the wild animals she'd studied. And when it turned to look at the cabin, she saw those eyes again. They weren't animal eyes. There was thought behind them, purpose, maybe even emotion. The creature sat down on the grass about 15 feet from her porch. It didn't try to approach. It didn't scratch at the door or howl or do anything threatening. It just watched, like it was waiting for something. Luna found herself watching back, her fear slowly mixing with something else. Fascination, maybe. Professional curiosity. This was unlike anything in the scientific literature. This was a discovery that could change everything she knew about wildlife. They stayed like that for nearly an hour. Woman and creature, watching each other through glass and darkness. When dawn started to break, the creature stood up. It took one last long look at the cabin and then it was gone, melting into the forest like a shadow. Luna rushed to check her trail camera, hands shaking with excitement. This was it. She'd have proof, evidence, something to show that this wasn't just her imagination or lack of sleep. But when she played back the footage, her excitement died. The camera had captured the clearing perfectly. She could see the cabin, the porch, even the individual blades of grass. But where the creature should have been, there was nothing. Just empty space. The camera had recorded for hours, but the creature never appeared on film. That's when Luna started to realize this was something beyond normal science. This was something else entirely. The fifth night brought a surprise. When she went out to her porch in the afternoon to bring in some firewood, she found something waiting for her. A deer freshly caught lying neatly on her porch steps. There was no blood, no mess, just the animal placed there carefully, almost respectfully. Luna stared at it, her mind racing. This was a gift. Predators brought food to their families, to their mates, to those they wanted to care for. This creature, whatever it was trying to provide for her. The realization should have scared her more. Instead, Luna felt something unexpected. She felt touched. Confused and disturbed, yes, but also strangely moved by the gesture. That night, she did something crazy. Instead of hiding inside, she sat on her porch steps, wrapped in a thick blanket against the cold mountain air. She waited. When the creature appeared at its usual time, it stopped at the tree line. Luna could feel its surprise, sense its hesitation. They looked at each other across the dark yard, and for the first time Luna spoke to it. "Thank you for the deer," she said softly. "But you're scaring me. I don't understand what you want." The creature tilted its head, and Luna could have sworn she saw understanding in those glowing eyes. Then slowly, deliberately, it took 3 steps closer than it ever had before, still keeping distance, still respectful of her space, but closer. Close enough that Luna could see the rise and fall of its chest as it breathed. They stayed like that until the cold forced Luna back inside. When she looked out an hour later, the creature was gone. But something had changed between them. Some invisible line had been crossed. Luna lay in bed that night staring at the ceiling, wondering what she'd gotten herself into, and wondering why, despite everything, she was already looking forward to tomorrow night. By the end of the first week, Luna had established what she privately called the routine. Every night around 11:30, the creature would arrive. She'd go out to her porch, sometimes bringing her coffee, sometimes just wrapped in her blanket. They'd watch each other across the yard. The creature never came closer than about 12 feet, and Luna never tried to approach. It was like some unspoken agreement between them. During the day, Luna found herself distracted from her actual research. She'd sit at her laptop, pretending to analyze data about regular wolf packs, but her mind kept drifting to the creature. She started calling it Shadow in her private notes, though she wasn't sure if it was male or female. Something about its presence felt masculine, protective even, but she couldn't be certain. The gifts continued. Every few days she'd find something new. A rabbit, a string of fish from the stream. Once, inexplicably, a handful of wildflowers arranged carefully on her porch railing. That one made Luna laugh out loud. What kind of creature brought flowers? She tried researching online, carefully wording her searches to avoid sounding crazy. Intelligent wolf behavior. Unusual canine interactions with humans. Folklore about wolf spirits. The results were mostly myths and legends, stories about shapeshifters and spirit animals. Luna was a scientist. She didn't believe in that stuff. But then again, her trail camera still showed nothing but empty space where Shadow clearly stood every night. On the 9th night, something changed. Luna was sitting on her porch as usual when she heard different sounds from the forest. Growling, aggressive, threatening growls, and more than one animal. Shadow burst from the tree line running, and behind it came 3 regular wolves, their teeth bared, hackles raised. Luna jumped to her feet, instinctively backing toward her door. She'd studied wolves enough to know this was a territorial dispute. The regular wolves saw Shadow as a threat, an intruder in their hunting grounds. What happened next took her breath away. Shadow didn't fight back. It easily could have, Luna could see that. It was bigger, stronger, clearly more powerful than the three wolves combined. But instead, Shadow positioned itself between Luna's cabin and the attacking wolves, standing its ground without being aggressive. Protecting her. The wolves circled, snapping and snarling, but Shadow just stood firm. Finally, after what felt like forever, the pack leader seemed to recognize that Shadow wasn't going to attack but also wasn't going to retreat. The wolves backed off, disappearing into the darkness with suspicious backward glances. Shadow stood there for a moment longer, its sides heaving with breath. Then it turned to look at Luna, and she saw something in those eyes that made her chest tight. Concern. It was checking to make sure she was okay. "I'm fine," Luna whispered. "Thank you." Shadow's ears twitched forward at her words, and for a moment Luna could have sworn it looked pleased. Then it limped slightly as it moved, and Luna noticed dark patches on its fur. "Blood. You're hurt." She took a step forward without thinking. Shadow immediately backed away, maintaining distance, but Luna could see the wounds clearly now. Bite marks on its shoulder and hindquarters. Not serious, but they had to hurt. "Wait, please," Luna said. "Let me help you." But Shadow shook its great head and retreated into the forest before Luna could say anything else. She stood on her porch for another hour, hoping it would return, but it didn't. The next night, Shadow didn't come at all. Luna told herself she was being ridiculous, but she couldn't deny the worry gnawing at her stomach. Was Shadow okay? Were the wounds infected? Had the wolf pack come back? She barely slept, jumping at every sound outside her window. By the third night of Shadow's absence, Luna was pacing her cabin like a caged animal. This was crazy. She was worried about a creature that had been essentially stalking her, a creature that shouldn't even exist according to everything she knew about science and nature. But she couldn't help it. She'd gotten used to the nightly visits, the quiet company, the strange sense of being watched over rather than hunted. On the fourth night, Luna did something she knew was probably stupid. She took her flashlight and went into the forest. "Shadow?" she called softly, feeling foolish. "Are you out there? I just want to know if you're okay." The forest was dark and full of sounds. Branches creaking, small animals rustling through undergrowth, the distant hoot of an owl. Luna walked carefully, keeping the cabin lights in view behind her, not wanting to get lost. "Please," she said to the darkness. "I'm worried about you. I know that sounds crazy, but I am. If you can hear me, just give me a sign that you're all right." Silence. Luna stood there for a long moment, feeling tears prick at her eyes. This was insane. She was standing in a dark forest talking to something that might not even be real, that her camera couldn't capture, that defied all logic and reason. She turned to head back to the cabin, disappointment heavy in her chest. That's when she saw it. Not Shadow, but something else. Scratched into the bark of a nearby tree were marks. Fresh marks. They formed a crude pattern, almost like letters? Luna stepped closer, shining her flashlight on the tree trunk. The marks definitely looked intentional, deliberate. They spelled out something, though the letters were rough. "Okay." Her hand flew to her mouth. Shadow was telling her it was okay. The creature could write, or at least it could communicate through symbols. This was beyond anything Luna had imagined. "Thank you," she whispered to the forest. "Thank you for letting me know." She returned to the cabin with a strange warmth in her heart. Shadow was watching over her even now, even when staying away, protecting her from a distance. 2 more nights passed. Luna went about her routine, but now she talked to the forest as if Shadow was always listening. She told it about her day, her research, even silly things like how she'd burned her dinner or how much she missed good coffee. On the 7th night of Shadow's absence, Luna sat on her porch and spoke to the darkness. "I understand if you can't come back," she said. "Maybe it's too dangerous with the wolf pack around. Maybe you need to heal, but I want you to know that I miss you. I know that's weird. I know I should probably be relieved that you're staying away, but I'm not. I miss our evenings together. I miss feeling like I'm not completely alone out here." She paused, surprised by her own honesty. "I spent my whole life avoiding people, you know? Relationships seemed too complicated, too messy. I always felt like I didn't fit in with other humans. But somehow you make sense to me. Maybe because you're not human. Maybe because you don't expect me to be anything other than what I am." The forest was quiet, but Luna felt like it was listening. "Anyway," she said, standing up and brushing off her jeans, "I just wanted you to know that. If you come back, great. If not, Well, I hope you're safe wherever you are. She went inside, closing the door gently behind her. What Luna didn't see was the pair of glowing eyes watching from the tree line, or the way the great creature's head tilted as it listened to every word she'd said. Shadow returned on the 8th night. Luna was already in bed, half asleep, when she heard the familiar sound of heavy footsteps on her porch. She sat up so fast she almost fell out of bed, her heart racing with excitement and relief. She threw on her sweater and rushed to the door, yanking it open without thinking about safety or caution. Shadow was there, sitting on the porch steps like it had never been gone. The wounds Luna had seen were healed, leaving only slightly darker patches in its fur. "You came back," Luna breathed, a huge smile spreading across her face. Shadow's tail moved, just slightly, not quite a wag, but something close to it. The creature's eyes were fixed on her face, and Luna saw something in them she'd never noticed before. Not just intelligence, but emotion, warmth, maybe even happiness. They fell back into their routine, but something had shifted. The distance between them seemed less important now. Shadow moved a bit closer each night, and Luna found herself sitting on the edge of her porch instead of in her chair. The gap between them shrank from 12 feet to 10, then to 8. Luna started bringing her research books outside, reading aloud about wolf behavior and pack dynamics. Shadow seemed to listen intently, its head tilted in that way that made Luna think it understood every word. "According to this," Luna said one night, tapping her textbook, "wolves mate for life. They choose one partner and stay loyal forever. That's pretty rare in the animal kingdom." Shadow made a sound almost like a huff of agreement. Luna laughed. "You're really understanding me, aren't you? You're not just some unusually smart wolf. You're something else entirely." She set down her book and looked at Shadow seriously. "I've been thinking a lot about what you might be. The legends talk about shapeshifters, about people who can transform into animals. But that's impossible, right? That's just mythology." Shadow's eyes seemed to gleam in the moonlight, but it didn't move. "Except my camera can't capture you. And you brought me flowers. And you can write messages in tree bark. So maybe impossible is just a word we use for things we don't understand yet." Luna pulled her blanket tighter around her shoulders. "If you are something more than an animal, I wish you could tell me. I wish we could really talk. There's so much I want to ask you." The next morning, Luna found something new. On her porch table was a leather-bound book, old and weathered. She picked it up carefully, her hands shaking. Where had this come from? Shadow couldn't have carried this. Could it? She opened the book and gasped. Inside were handwritten entries, dated from the 1880s. The handwriting was elegant, old-fashioned, and the entries were written by someone named Catherine Miller. Luna read the first entry with growing amazement. "I have encountered something extraordinary in these mountains. A creature that is both wolf and something more. It has been watching my homestead for weeks now, leaving gifts, protecting me from dangers I never knew existed. The local people whisper about shapeshifters, about ancient spirits that walk between two worlds. I am beginning to believe them." Luna's hands shook as she turned the pages. Catherine's story mirrored her own in eerie ways. The nightly visits, the gifts, the sense of being protected and courted by something not quite animal, not quite human. But there was more. Catherine wrote about eventually seeing the creature transform, about meeting the man behind the wolf. She wrote about a love that transcended normal understanding, about choosing to stay in the mountains with her mysterious guardian, rather than returning to civilization. The final entry was dated 20 years after the first. "We have built a life together that few would understand. He is both man and beast caught between two worlds, but he is mine and I am his. I regret nothing." Luna sat down hard on her porch steps, the book clutched to her chest. Shadow had brought her this. It was showing her what was possible, what had happened before. But it was also asking her a question. Could she accept something like this? That night, Luna confronted Shadow directly. "You left this for me," she said, holding up the book. "You wanted me to know what you are. That you're not just an animal. That you're someone." Shadow's eyes were fixed on her face, unblinking. "Catherine's story had a happy ending, but mine isn't hers. I need to understand what you want from me. Why you keep coming here night after night. Why you bring me gifts and protect me and leave me books about impossible love stories." Luna's voice cracked slightly. "I need to know what you're asking me." Shadow stood up slowly and took 3 deliberate steps closer. They were now barely 6 feet apart, closer than they'd ever been. Luna could see every detail now, the silver threads in Shadow's dark fur, the old scars beneath the surface, the way its chest rose and fell with breath that seemed almost human. Then Shadow did something that made Luna's world tilt. It bowed its head, a gesture of respect, of submission almost, and then it placed one massive paw forward, pushing something across the porch toward her. It was a single white flower, perfect and unblemished. Luna picked it up with trembling hands. In the language of flowers, which her grandmother had taught her years ago, white flowers meant new beginnings. They meant choice. They meant a question being asked. "You're courting me," Luna whispered, the truth finally settling into her bones. "That's what all of this has been. You're asking if I would choose you, if I would accept you whatever you are." Shadow's eyes seemed to glow brighter, and Luna saw hope there. "Raw, vulnerable hope, but I don't even know your human name," Luna said softly. "I don't know anything about you except that you're kind and protective and patient. I don't know where you came from or why you chose me or how any of this is even possible." Shadow backed away slightly, and Luna saw disappointment in its posture. It thought she was rejecting it. "Wait," Luna said quickly. "I'm not saying no. I'm saying I need time. I need to understand this. You've had weeks to watch me, to know me, but I've only had glimpses of you. That's not fair." Shadow stopped, its head tilted in question. "Come back tomorrow night," Luna said, her heart pounding. "But not as a wolf. Come as yourself, your human self. Let me see who you really are. Let me talk to you with words instead of gestures. If you want a real answer from me, if you want a real choice, then I need to know the whole truth." The silence stretched between them. Luna held her breath, wondering if she'd just ruined everything, if she'd asked for too much. Then Shadow did something unexpected. It threw back its head and howled, a long, mournful sound that echoed through the mountains. But it wasn't a sound of sadness. It was agreement. It was acceptance of her terms. When Shadow looked at her again, Luna saw determination in those glowing eyes. Tomorrow night, everything would change. Shadow turned and disappeared into the forest, and Luna was left standing on her porch clutching a white flower, wondering what she'd just agreed to and whether she was ready for the truth. She went inside and pulled out Catherine's journal again, reading it cover to cover. The woman's words were full of joy but also warnings. Loving something caught between two worlds means living there yourself. It means leaving behind the certainty of normal life. It means choosing the impossible. Luna set the journal down and looked at her reflection in the dark window. Who was she really? A scientist who'd spent her life studying life from a safe distance? Or someone brave enough to step into the unknown? Tomorrow night she'd find out. Luna spent the entire next day in a state of nervous energy. She cleaned the cabin 3 times, changed her clothes 4 times, and couldn't eat anything except crackers because her stomach was in knots. This was ridiculous. She was getting ready for what? A date with a shapeshifter? With something that shouldn't even exist? But it was real. The journal was real. The gifts were real. The creature that had protected her from the wolf pack was real. And tonight she'd finally get answers. As sunset approached, Luna made a decision. She built a fire in the small fire pit outside her cabin, set out 2 chairs and made hot tea. If they were going to talk, really talk, they might as well be comfortable. The evening air was cold, but the fire would keep them warm. She sat down to wait, her hands wrapped around her mug of tea, watching the tree line. 11:30 came and went. No Shadow, no mysterious visitor. Luna's heart sank. Had she scared him away by demanding to see his human form? Had she pushed too hard? Then at midnight she heard footsteps. But these weren't the heavy 4-legged footsteps she'd grown used to. These were different. Human footsteps. A man emerged from the darkness beyond the fire's light. He was tall, probably in his 30s, with dark hair that fell past his shoulders and eyes that caught the firelight in a way that was almost familiar. He wore simple clothes, jeans, and a worn jacket, and he moved with the same careful grace that Shadow had always shown. He stopped at the edge of the firelight, just as cautious as he'd always been in his other form. "Can I come closer?" His voice was deep, rough from disuse, but gentle. Luna nodded, not trusting her voice. He took a seat in the chair across from her, leaving the fire between them. His hands were shaking slightly, Luna noticed. He was nervous, too. "My name is River," he said after a long moment. "I know that's not a common name, but it's what my people called me a long time ago." "How long?" Luna asked softly. "I was born in 1847, River said, meeting her eyes. "I'm 178 years old." Luna's logical mind wanted to reject this, to call it impossible. But she'd already accepted impossible. How? My people, the ones I was born to, were different. Shapeshifters, though we called ourselves by another name. We age slowly in our natural human form, and barely at all when we stay in our animal form. I've spent most of the last century as a wolf, only rarely taking human shape. Why? River looked into the fire. It hurts less. Being human means remembering everything I've lost. My family died in the 1870s, wiped out by disease that we had no immunity to. I was the only one who survived. I had friends once in the early 1900s, but I had to watch them age and die while I stayed young. After a while, it was easier to just be the wolf. Wolves don't mourn the past. Luna's heart ached for him. That sounds incredibly lonely. It was, River admitted. Until you came. He looked at her then, really looked at her, and Luna felt the intensity of his gaze. When I first caught your scent, something in me woke up. Something I thought had died decades ago. I watched you for days before I worked up the courage to approach. You were so focused on your work, so peaceful in your solitude. I recognized that. I saw myself in you. Someone running from connections, Luna said softly. Yes, but also someone worth knowing, someone kind. I watched you rescue a bird with a broken wing, watched you carefully avoid disturbing animal dens during your research. You respect the forest and everything in it. You're gentle but not weak, independent but not cold. Luna felt tears prick at her eyes. You saw all that just by watching me? I saw more. I saw someone who talks to herself when she's thinking, who dances while making breakfast, who cries during sunset because beauty moves her. I saw someone I wanted to know, wanted to protect, wanted to court, as you said. But why show yourself now? Why not just stay as Shadow forever? River leaned forward. Because you asked me to. Because you deserve the truth. And because courting someone in wolf form has significant limitations. Despite the tension, Luna laughed. I suppose it does. I need you to understand something, River said seriously. What I'm asking isn't simple. I'm not like the men you might meet in town or in your old life. Half the time I struggle to remember how to be human. I live in these mountains in a small cabin miles from here. I hunt for my food. I have no connection to modern technology or society. If you chose me, you'd be choosing a life that's very different from anything you've known. But Catherine chose it, Luna said. I read her journal. River's face softened. Catherine was my great-great-aunt. The man she wrote about was my father's brother, Thomas. He gave me that journal before he died and told me to keep it safe. He said that someday I might need it to help someone understand. Did it work for them? Were they happy? Deliriously, River said with a small smile. Thomas lived until 1970. Catherine died in her sleep in 1968 at the age of 98. They had 60 years together. He only survived her by 2 years. He said there was no point in going on without her. Luna wiped at her eyes. That's beautiful and heartbreaking. That's love, River said quietly. The real kind. The kind that accepts everything about the other person, even the impossible parts. They sat in silence for a while, watching the fire crackle. Luna studied River's face, looking for traces of the wolf she'd come to care for. They were there in his eyes, in the way he held himself, in the careful way he moved. Can I ask you something? Luna said finally. Anything? Why me? Out of all the people who must have passed through these mountains over the years, why did I wake something in you? River stood up and moved around the fire, stopping a few feet from her chair. Can I show you something? Luna nodded, her heart racing. River held out his hand, palm up. Slowly, carefully, Luna reached out and placed her hand in his. The moment their skin touched, she felt it. A warmth, a connection, something that went beyond physical. It was like every cell in her body suddenly recognized him, responded to him. My people, we have something we call soul recognition, River explained, his voice barely above a whisper. It's rare even for us. It means finding someone who complements you perfectly, who fits into the empty spaces in your spirit. When I caught your scent that first day, every instinct I had told me you were mine, my match, the one person in the world I was meant to find. Luna's breath caught. But that's choosing for me. What if I don't feel the same way? You do, River said gently. You might not have a name for it yet, but you feel it too. Why else would you have worried when I was hurt? Why else would you have called out to the forest looking for me? Why else would you be sitting here now holding my hand instead of running away? He was right. Luna had felt the connection from the start, even when it terrified her. This is crazy, she whispered. Yes, River agreed. Completely crazy. I have a job, a career, a life back in the city. I'm only supposed to be here for 6 months. I know. People will think I've lost my mind if I just disappear into the mountains. Probably. And we barely know each other. You've been a wolf for most of our interactions. River smiled slightly. That's true. We should probably spend some time together. Human to human. Regular dating as much as that's possible out here. Luna looked up at him, at this impossible man with his ancient eyes and gentle smile. You're willing to be patient? To give me time to figure this out? I've waited 178 years, River said. I can wait a little longer. Take all the time you need, Luna. I'm not going anywhere. They stood there, hands clasped, firelight dancing between them. Luna felt the pull, the connection, but she also felt fear. This was a choice that would change everything. Will you come back tomorrow night? She asked. In this form. So we can talk more. Every night, River promised. For as long as you want me to. He gently released her hand and stepped back. I should go. You need time to think. River? Luna called as he turned to leave. Thank you for being honest with me. For showing me who you really are. He looked back at her and Luna saw hope shining in his eyes. Thank you for asking me to. For giving me a chance. Then he walked into the darkness and Luna was alone again. But not really alone. She could feel him out there, watching over her like he always did. She sat back down by the dying fire, her mind spinning. A shapeshifter. Soul recognition. An impossible choice. But maybe, just maybe impossible was exactly what she'd been looking for all along. River came back the next night, and the night after that, and the night after that. They fell into a new routine. He'd arrive at sunset in his human form, and they'd talk for hours by the fire or inside the cabin if the weather was bad. He told her stories about his past, about the world as it had been over a century ago. Luna told him about her life, her research, her dreams. Slowly, the strangeness between them faded. River was patient and kind, never pushing for more than Luna was ready to give. But the connection between them grew stronger each day. 2 weeks into their human meetings, Luna made a decision. Show me your home, she said one evening. I want to see where you live. River looked surprised but pleased. It's not much. Nothing like a modern house. I don't care. I want to see your world. River took her hand and they walked through the forest together. Luna was amazed at how differently she experienced the woods with him. River pointed out animal trails she'd never noticed, showed her where eagles nested, taught her to read the forest like a book. His cabin was smaller than hers, half hidden in a dense grove of trees. Inside, it was surprisingly cozy. Simple furniture that looked handmade, shelves full of old books, a stone fireplace that clearly saw regular use. There were personal touches, too. Carvings of animals on the windowsills, dried herbs hanging from the ceiling, a beautiful quilt on the bed. You made this? Luna asked, touching the quilt. Catherine taught Thomas and Thomas taught me. Said it was important to know how to create beauty, not just survive. Luna explored the cabin, asking questions about everything. River answered patiently, seeming genuinely happy to share his life with her. Can I see? Luna asked suddenly. Can I see you shift? River tensed. It's not pretty to watch. I don't care. I want to understand all of you. River studied her face for a long moment, then nodded. He stepped back, giving himself space. It doesn't hurt, he explained. But it takes concentration. Luna watched in amazement as River closed his eyes. For a moment, nothing happened. Then his form began to shimmer like